Oh boy. Well, here we are. Another post-game video, and sadly another Seahawks loss on the road. The Green Bay Packers pummeled us 38-10 in what was the worst loss we've seen by the Seahawks since 2011, and the worst loss obviously in the Russell Wilson era. And we thought 2 weeks ago when we lost to the Bucs, we thought that game was bad. This was even worse, much, much worse. However, I will preface that by saying there's reason for optimism. But let's first dissect what went wrong in this game, and it's a long list, but here we go. First of all, as a lot of you know, if you've been following me, I predicted a loss a long time ago, back before the season even started. We hadn't won in Lambeau since 1999. Lambeau's a tough place to play in December anyway, and so I wasn't completely shocked or heartbroken, but obviously I was not happy to see. I was hoping we would pull out a win from there, but that just wasn't going to happen for the moment. The first score came down by the Packers. So I did my keys to the game a few days ago before the game, and let's just go through to see if we accomplished any of them. Let's see. Key number 1, don't let the weather be a factor and be careful with the ball. 6 turnovers, 5 interceptions. Not gonna do it. Not being careful with the ball. Secondly, get the running game going. Unfortunately, when you fall behind 3 touchdowns, the running game has to go by the wayside. So while it was going in that first drive, we kind of had to abandon it pretty quick. So unfortunately, that never happened. Convert third downs. We did actually convert some third downs. Problem was, we couldn't finish our drives. So we did okay in the third down department, but we weren't outstanding in that area. Scored touchdowns in the red zone. Our first drive in, where I thought we had a chance to kind of keep that game close, we had to settle for a field goal, and then the Packers never looked back. We did have some opportunities. I don't know if we really got in the red zone. Every time we got within enemy territory, it resulted in pretty much an interception or a turnover, and that's just as bad as not scoring in the red zone, because you don't even get in the red zone. And then my fifth and final key was keep Rodgers down, and clearly he had maybe the game of the year for him, and just picked the Seattle defense apart. So we were pretty much maybe 1 key out of 5, but the big one was just the turnovers. I mean, you can't win a game if you turn the ball over 6 times and not get any of your own. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, that really probably was the main underscoring reason why we lost that game. But there's obviously reasons. You got to ask, why did that happen? Let's first get out right away what it wasn't. So it wasn't the Wolf Grays, because they wore the outfit I said they needed to wear, and they lost. So much for the Wolf Grays. Cam Chancellor had his visor, so I can't blame it on that one. I can say kind of that I wasn't watching the game live the entire time either, because I had this time a gymnastics meet for my kids, but they had a TV at the match, so I was actually able to pretty much watch the progress of the game. I just wasn't live streaming it or real time watching it. So there you go. But things went bad before I actually watched the first quarter and a half, and things were out of hand before I even left, the watching the TV. So wasn't my fault. So, let's just start with the obvious one. Wilson was clearly off yesterday. I don't think anybody, and himself included, has not given a good reason as to why he was off, but he was just missing targets from the beginning, even before it got out of hand. There were a couple of times when Seattle had, there was a Baldwin long opportunity for a touchdown, and one to Jimmy Graham, that if he just dropped that ball in there, those guys had gotten behind the secondary, and they were gone if he could have gotten on the ball, and he just overthrew them. And he seemed to be overthrowing receivers most of the game. So I don't know why that is. We've had times in the past where Wilson has gotten off target, and we've wondered why. We've speculated because at the time maybe he was going through his divorce, maybe it's because he's on his honeymoon, or maybe he's going to Mexico. I mean, the bottom line is quarterbacks have a bad day. He had a bad day. And maybe there is no real definitive reason. Maybe it was a cold. Maybe he was expecting snow and he didn't get the snow. It was just cold. Who knows? But it clearly was a lot of it falls on his shoulders. Now, those 5 interceptions were not entirely his fault. There were a couple. One went right through Baldwin's hands, bounced off his face mask, and it became an interception. That's not his fault. That was a perfectly thrown ball. Would normally be caught. There was another one. Jimmy Graham fell down. The defender had pretty good inside position. He may have still gotten the pick, but maybe Graham would have at least been able to fight for it and break it up, or maybe fight and get the ball from him. But he ended up on the turf. So those were a couple. And then Tremaine Pope near the end, it was kind of garbage time, but he also had a ball go off his hands and get picked off. So the stats are going to reflect on Wilson, but they weren't entirely like 5 bad throws. There were 3, deflections or drops or just things where it was out of his control, and the other ones arguably can be just said that they were not as well thrown or ill-advised throws or just well defended by the Packers. The Packers played a great game. You got to give them credit. Aaron Rodgers, their defense, while it's been seeming like the Packers' defense has not been very good this season, they weren't in the first half of the year, but man, they were playing lights out last night. And so that was just, kind of part of the sign. Defensively, probably the biggest glaring one is we had no pass rush. We got sacked 3 times. I don't think we ever touched him. We got him one time. But again, it was too little too late. We gave up 34 points, which is one of the highest games, if not the highest game this season. What I did notice, and you guys probably did too, is we had a lot of guys slipping and falling down. And KJ Wright fell down on a pass play to Jordy Nelson. I saw Sherman fall down a few times. I saw a running back fall down. Linemen were slipping and sliding. I just wonder. Obviously, we're all playing on the same turf, so you can't blame that as an excuse of why we lost. But did Seattle bring the wrong cleats? I mean, just kind of wonder if why that was the case. To have such bad footing. Again, if everybody was slipping and sliding on both sides, then we kind of say, well, it's bad turf or whatever. But it seemed like most of the slipping and sliding was happening on our side. So I don't quite know why that was the case, but it seems like did we pack the wrong cleats? So it's a question to wonder about. But nice thing is at home we don't have that issue, but we will be playing in our finale at the 49ers, which has a notoriously lousy field as well. So I hope you guys bring your long cleats to that final game, because I don't want to see you guys falling all over the place again like we were against the Packers. That's certainly not helping our cause. I asked the big question, and everybody's really wondering, what's life without Earl Thomas for the Seahawks? What's it going to look like? Well, we've seen 2 games now without Earl Thomas back there. And that was the Buccaneers game where we lost in an ugly fashion, but the defense kept them to 14 points. And this time, we lost again 34 points, 38. Gave up 38 points. I sold them short. 38 points. And again, without Earl Thomas in there. So, is this a pattern? Is it something, that is the LOB just not the same without Earl Thomas in the back there, kind of as the safety valve, making sure that the guys in front don't have to worry about things back there? We'll see. I still think that we haven't seen enough. Again, you turn over the ball 5 or 6 times and give the other team wonderful field position. It's tough for any team to keep them from scoring on you. So we'll have to see. We have 3 more games left to get a sense of the post Earl Thomas injury, how our defense is doing. But we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that. But the biggest mystery of this game, I think, is just while those things are kind of short-term things that we're still trying to figure out, what we do know, looking at this entire season, is that we've had our worst games, and they've all been on the road. And it's usually when the offense doesn't show up. We lost to the Rams, only scored a field goal. Tied the Cardinals, and only had 6 points. Lost to the Saints in a game where we scored 20, but our offense was not very good through most of that game. Buccaneers only scored 5 points, and then now this game against the Packers, we only scored 10. So we're averaging 12.5 points a game on the road, which is not going to get it done, especially when it gets to the playoffs. Conversely, when we're at home, we score over 28 points a game. So why the extreme difference being on the road? I understand it to have a little bit of a drop off, but to have more than double is alarming. And I don't think anybody really knows. And it is definitely tied to quarterback play by Russell Wilson. We used to blame it on the offensive line, but really this game, you can't really blame the offensive line for what went wrong. They actually did a decent job. Wilson got sacked 3 times, but it wasn't like we couldn't move the ball. In fact, if you look at the glass half full now, part of this game, we actually had more total yards than the Packers did. I know it's hard to believe when you look at the final score, but we actually out yardaged the Pack 354 to 330, and we out rushed the Packers 136 to 93. So what that tells me is that it wasn't like our offense couldn't do anything. We actually moved the ball very well. We had several productive drives where we moved almost the length of the field, but it just unfortunately ended up in turnovers. And a couple of those, one was at the end of the first half where we were going in to get a nice end of half touchdown that would have got us back in the game, interception. Started the second half, moved the ball nicely, interception. I mean, that's 14 points there that at the time would have got us right back in the game. And again, when you turn the ball over that many times, there's just no way you're going to overcome it and win. So, and continue on the positive. So Rawls looked good. And so I think we do have a running game. We just had to abandon it because of the way the game played out with Green Bay jumping up to such a fast lead. So I've said, we got to have a running game that's working, and I think it will be working, but we've just got to not get to such a bad start so we can use that running game to our advantage. And so I still have faith that our running game is good. And really the other positive thing to this is that we didn't have any major injuries coming out of that game. As it got down to the fourth quarter, we're clearly not going to win it. I just kept going, please, why don't you just take Wilson out? Let's let these guys rest. The last thing you want to do is let someone get hurt in a blowout game where you have no more chance of coming back. So fortunately, we didn't suffer any major injuries, so that bodes well for the remaining 3 games. So I still think that this game is not a reflection of who our team is. I think it is an aberration in the sense that Wilson's not going to go out and throw 5 interceptions again. He probably won't do that again for a long time. I don't think we're going to get blown out again like this. We had gone almost 4 years, or no, I take that back. 2011, it was 5 years without losing a game by more than 10 points. And we've been pretty spoiled to be in these games that are so close and competitive and exciting. So when you get a blowout against us like we did yesterday, it almost feels like the sky is falling. Oh man, our team is again just getting the overreaction. Everything is wrong. Everything's doomed. We're doomed. So I don't think this is, again, who our real team is. The good thing is the playoffs are still well within our reach, and most likely, almost with guarantee, that we will have a home game, at least one playoff game. But what is concerning is the things I just mentioned as the biggest clouds hanging over the head, which is, what is wrong with our pass rush? We've got to get a pass rush going, and we've got to do better on the road, because as it looks like now, the playoffs, we will get a little bit at home, but we're going to have to win on the road if we want to make it to the Super Bowl. So we have got to do it, and we've only got one away game left. So really, and that's against the 49ers. So really, no matter what, even if we win big against 49ers, it's the 49ers. And so it's really going to be one of those things where they're just going to have to find a way when that next big competitive road game comes up, they're going to have to find a way to win it, because if you can't, if we show up like we did, as we've had in all of our past away games, we're not going to get very far besides what we do at home. So there you go. So there's positives, there's definitely some negatives, some concerns that's not obvious of how to fix. But I think we know what they are. We've just got to hope that these guys will find a way to overcome them. So let's talk playoffs here, bringing up playoffs. Talking about playoffs? The good news is, despite our terrible loss yesterday, we're in a sucky NFC West division, so everybody else lost as well. So, which is really terrible. That's the second time all the teams in the same division lost, but it's good for us. The Rams lost, the Cardinals lost, and the 49ers lost. So we all just sort of shifted down again together. So the good thing is, from an NFC West standpoint, we are at the same position that we are. We can still clinch it next on Thursday if things go right. If we get a win, and I believe if the Cardinals lose, I think we will clinch the NFC West. And that's all that's left on the schedule are those three crappy teams. Breaking news just moments ago. Just found out that Jeff Fisher, the coach of the Rams, who was just announced last week that he got a contract extension, they just announced that they fired him. So Jeff Fisher is gone. He was not good with the Rams, and so it's funny it took this long, but it's been a mess over there. In some ways, it's just a double-edged sword, because while I think it's been great that he's been there as a coach, because he's kind of kept them from really having any kind of success, the one thing we do know that maybe is a positive for us coming up this week is that Jeff Fisher seems to be the one that is the coach that for the one team that he does go out and beat is us, because we've lost to them 3 times in a row. So maybe the fact that he's out, maybe that'll be just enough that it'll help us defeat these guys at home. I mean, we really should take care of these guys. These guys are terrible. They've been playing lackluster all season. Guys are pretty much mailed it in. So we need to destroy the Rams this Thursday. So anyway, so NFC West-wise, we're in control of our own destiny. We will clinch it very soon. I believe we'll clinch it this week. I don't know if we'll clinch it on Thursday, but I think by the time the dust settles on the weekend, we'll have clinched it. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. In the bigger scope of the playoffs, the negative to this is that because of the Detroit Lions win and our loss, that dropped us from the number 2 seed to the number 3 seed. So now the seeding right now looks like this. We've got Dallas at number 1, Detroit number 2, Seattle number 3, Atlanta number 4, New York Giants number 5 as your first wild card, and number 6, Tampa Bay as your second wild card. If the season ended today, that's currently that is where we're at right now. So we're chasing the Lions now. We're behind them by a half a game essentially. So the good news is we can still catch them. We obviously got 3 games left. So if we can win out and they just drop 1, technically that should put us back in the number 2 seed. And to help in that regard is Matthew Stafford of the Lions injured his throwing, I believe it was his middle finger. He tore a tendon in his finger, which is a really key part of throwing the ball. So he may not be the same guy who has been, leading this team to a pretty successful season so far. That's going to hurt them down the road here, especially they got some tough division games coming up, including the Packers, I believe. So, hopefully they will stumble a couple times and allow us to grab that second seed back. But we've got to just win. We've just got to win our games and give us our best chance to do that. So, what does this mean? If the season ended today and we were to play the playoffs starting this weekend, what would happen is the Cowboys and the Lions would have a first-round bye, and then the wild card games would be the Falcons versus the Giants, and then the Buccaneers would come here to play in the wild card, a rematch with the Buccaneers at home. So that's what would happen if all things stayed the same right now. So, and then playing more with that hypothetical, if we'd won, we would then play the Lions in Detroit, and then the Cowboys would face the winner of the Falcons and the Giants, who the Giants last night beat the Cowboys for the second time in a row. So it makes it very interesting for a playoff matchup that, the Giants seem to have the Cowboys' number this year. Obviously, the only team that's beat them and beat them twice. So I was happy to see the Cowboys get that loss, just to kind of keep things interesting. And technically, mathematically, very long stretch mathematically, Seattle could still get the number 1 seed, believe it or not. If we were to win out and Dallas were to lose out, that would end the season. Dallas would end up 11-5, and we would end up 11-4-1, which would be a half game ahead of the Cowboys, and we would get the number 1 seed. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's fun to dream. But for that matter, these are the other teams that are still in the playoff hunt. We got the Redskins, the Vikings, and the Packers still right there, right on the toes, chasing for a playoff spot. And then technically, mathematically, the Cardinals, Saints, Panthers, and Eagles technically are not mathematically out of it. It would take a miracle and a half for all the other teams to melt for those guys to find a way in. But as it stands right now, that's kind of the situation. So I know it's very confusing. I've had a lot of people asking, what's going to happen? How does this hurt our playoff situation? Well, there you go. Hope you understand it just a little bit more where we stand. But I think it's safe to say, barring a major meltdown by the Seahawks, that we will get the NFC West, which means at least 1 home playoff game. All right. But what we want is not the division for a home playoff game, but we want the number 2 seed. That way we can have a first round bye and a home playoff game. So that's what we're gunning for, and we're chasing Detroit. So to do that, we've got to win some games here, preferably all of them, and hope that Detroit drops 1 at least. All right. I think that's it. That's it for now. We got a short week. Thursday night football. It'll be fun. We get to see the Seahawks in their bright green Grinch outfits. I'm not crazy about the green color rush, but it'll be fun to watch, I suppose, just to kind of see this visual anomaly that we have never seen before. So that will be quite the spectacle. But looking forward to being at the game. Just a couple of quick notes to add to this. I've been mentioning this on other posts, but we are, through 12's Helping 12's, a foundation that Mark Collins and I started a couple years ago. We are looking for some families in need who could use some help for the holidays. And if you email a name of a family that you believe could use some help this season, just email us at 12sforgood@gmail.com. That's 12's number 4 good@gmail.com. And just include the family's name and a little description about their situation, and they may be eligible for a $250 grant from 12's Helping 12's to help them out. So send them in, and we'll be picking from that sometime at the end of the week. So I should about wrap it up. I am planning to do a new music video, and my goal is to be shooting a little bit of that at the stadium this Thursday. So if you happen to see me, I might be doing a little bit of music video shooting. So come join in, and I'll put you on there if I run into you at the stadium. All right. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Seahawks fans, don't worry. We're going to be all right. The playoffs are still in our hands. And the reality is, when the playoffs start, everything else kind of goes away, and it's a whole nother season. So forget about that loss. Upward and onward to bigger and better things, but let's get this game on Thursday. All right. Have a good week. Go Hawks.